All right, everybody, welcome back. This week we're going to cover Node.js as a way to stimulate or simulate a server when you're doing some development. So a little back end. Um, I really think that the book and the Cengage video cover how to use Node effectively. I will cover how to use Node for a project, but I'm also going to cover a few extra things when using Node. We'll cover how to do an API call and do something cooler anyway than the project here, which I find boring. But definitely go make sure you read that and follow along with their video. Uh, Same stuff every week, self-test programming project, which I'm gonna cover in the video, and then a quiz. So without further ado, Node.js, there's a link right here to download Node.js, and it will take you to this website where you just download the most recent version of it. I don't like the way Firefox handles this, but hopefully, yeah, see, I've already downloaded it once before. We're going to go ahead and install that. And it's pretty straightforward. Accept the license agreement, tell it where you want to save it. I saved mine in a funky place, so yours will not look like mine. But if you just want to accept the default location, that is fine too. And the only thing I would suggest going ahead and clicking that button just to install all the dependencies. It says it's going to install Chocolatey, and let that run. It really doesn't take too long, but I'll skip ahead until this finishes. So when it finishes, you'll get that you'll get a message saying it's been successfully done. Click finish, and you'll notice a command line tool, terminal, whatever you want to call it, open up. I didn't read this, but just hit enter a bunch of times and it will open PowerShell. This is actually a PowerShell script that is installing. Now I have already installed this once, had to uninstall it, reinstall it just for kind of demonstration purposes. So it says I've already got Chocolatey installed, all my stuff's already good. Yours will do a few things. When it finishes, it'll just say type enter to exit, hit enter, and then enter, and that'll go away. And Node should be installed. The only other thing I need you to do for this project is to go to openweathermap.org. If we go to the home page, it'll look like this. You can use the key if you see it in the video and want to copy it from this demonstration, but what you should do is go here to API and then sign up to use the fast and easy to work weather APIs, blah, blah, blah. Pretty sure it's free. I don't think you have to enter a credit card. But we're just going to use the free version anyway. There's lots of things you can do that are paid, but there is a free version. So yeah, if you should probably sign up and get your own API key. Either way, or use the one you see in the video. For those of you that don't know what an API is, it's just it's called Application Programming Interface, and basically, so Open Weather Map, for instance, collects a lot of data, and they created an API so that other people could access that data and use it in their own applications. That's what an API is and what it does. And what we're going to do in this project is make a call to Open Weather Map, grab some data, and then display it in our own web application. For those of you who don't know. And more on that later when we get to it. So from here, I already expect we're going to run into some errors. But I've got this folder right here on my desktop. This will be my chapter 8 folder. You see there's nothing in it right now. We go into Visual Studio and I'm going to open that folder. Yeah, you can see some terminal errors already. Let's see if this works. We're in chapter 8. There's nothing here. Go up to terminal, new terminal, and you should be in that folder path. And let's see if this works. npm. So npm is the Node packet manager. Just say if you were in the Python class, you know about pip. It's package manager for Python. This is npm is a packet manager for Node. There are modules that you can pull in and use, libraries, modules, whatever you want to call them. And this lets you install them. But the first thing you have to do when you start a Node project or a project that's going to use Node is initiate it. And the command to do that is simply npm init. All right, so we got a few errors here. Things have changed. So the first error here, if it tells you that the term npm is not recognized, this is because you had Visual Studio open while you were installing npm. You need to close it and then reopen it. And I would say it works, but it doesn't actually, because it's not digitally signed anymore. It says npm is not digitally signed. Actually, it's remotely signed. It should be able to be used, but we're gonna have to figure out, because Windows doesn't like this. You may or may not be getting these errors. I hope you're not, but if you are, this is how we're gonna work through them. I'm not a huge fan of the solution for this, but open up your folder where you installed Node.js, go to File, open Windows PowerShell, and run it as an administrator. This may be difficult for some of you who are in high school, in the computer lab or whatever. I don't know what we're going to do about that, but if you can do this and then run this command, set-execution policy, remote signed, scope, current users. This is basically saying that you can run any script on the current user profile that is remotely signed. I don't like it, because any script that's remotely signed, some may be bad for you, and it's kind of bypassing security, but it's going to say this whole thing. You sure you want to do this? And just hit yes. Y. Then you should get your cursor back. Let's see if it worked. In fact, actually, let's close out and restart Visual Studio just to see if it actually worked. We got our terminal back, and let's go to npm init, and it does work. Okay, so that fix does work, although I don't particularly like it. But it works. So now we are initializing npm, and what it's going to do is create a file for us that we then use later. So the first thing we need to do, it asks us for a package name. If you can see down here at the end, let me see if I can scooch this up a little bit, something like that. So it asks us for a package name. We're just going to leave that blank, or just going to hit enter. Most of this is just enter. The only thing, we only need to change one thing in here. Or leave the version, leave the description blank, but these are all things you can put into your projects. The entry point, this is what I want to change. Now, generally, or by default, it's going to look for an index.js, just like you would look for index.html to as your initial file when you land. What we are going to do, I think, we're going to do server, just because this is going to act like our server. So server.js, and we're going to create that file. Everything else is stuff you can add to projects, but I just don't, because we're just playing here, right? It's just for assignment. So this is what it's going to do. It says this is okay, yes, just Y, enter, and then you should get your cursor back. And then back at the top, you see it created this package.json file. You pull my terminal down. This is the contents of the package.json file. It's just saying name, the version, the main, and the stuff that we just put in there. Nothing, basically. But you need this. Then, let's see, we're going to use express, EJS, and request. So back in our terminal, let me clear this so you can see it. Back in our terminal at your prompt, we're going to use npm to install. It's just I. We're going to do express request and EJS. When you hit enter, it's going to do stuff. It's going to go ahead and install all the dependencies for those particular modules that you need. So again, in the Python class, you may have seen if you installed a particular module, that module depended on other modules, libraries, whatnot. So it's going to install all that stuff for you in your project. It tells you about vulnerabilities and depreciation and all that stuff. You don't need to worry about that. But then you see we got this package-lock.json file. And in that file, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. These are all just the dependencies and where to get them, the SHA values and that kind of stuff. And there's a lot in there. So we're going to ignore that, leave it alone. You also get this folder here called Node Modules. And this is a bunch of modules. I guess all the ones that had just been installed. So these three things are what we just did when we created and we established the basis for a Node.js project. I can't remember if he does this in the video or not, but that's the start of it. So what do we do now? All right, we're going to go in here to chapter 8. We're going to create a new file. We're going to call that server.js, just like we told it we would. And in here, like I said, we are going to import a few things or create a few variables. So we're going to use express, EJS, and requests, and this is how you do it. The variable express equals require express. It just knows what that means, and it pulls it from the modules. We've got that good stuff already. So then we need to create a server. It's bar, not burr. Bar server, and that's just going to be equal to express, the function express. Express is going to create our server. All these darn, they're tempting me with all the stuff that pops up here, but I don't want to do that just yet. We need to do a few things. We're going to server.use express static, not public, express static, and then we're going to tell it to use the directory that we are in plus any directories we may have in addition to a lot. So in our other projects, we've had our HTML files, and then we've had a JavaScript folder and a CSS folder just to kind of keep things neat. In this case, we may want to use a CSS folder where CSS files will be. And we will also want to, I'm not doing the whole project for you. I want you to figure a few things out on your own, but I'm creating one for images. You don't have to do that if your project doesn't require it. Last thing, express, no, URL coded. I want that to be false. Use, nope, not apply. I gotta watch this. I like this AI. Keeps like to throw stuff in there. I guess I call it AI, I don't know. We're not going to use extended encoding. You need to create a server and set it to listen. You can set this port to be whatever you want. I set mine for 8,000. And then we are going to send that information, to a function. that just simply, it says the server's running on port 8000. And instead of that, so let's do this so you don't forget, because I keep forgetting here. At Oops, I got caps on. Localhost port 8000. So to run this, or to view the web page that the server is hosting, you would go to a website or a URL. If you know anything about URLs, they're just IP addresses that are encoded, and DHCP figures out blah 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 blah. Long story short, for this we would use our loopback address, which is 127.0.0.1, and then semicolon and put the port, and that would take you to the web page. You can also put localhost, which is just easier. So that's what I'm doing. Then we're going to server.set view. Oh my goodness. View engine as EJS. So this says we are going to use enhanced JavaScript to view a page. Now, in order to view the page, in order to use EJS, EJS is going to come into your main directory and look for a folder called views. So we need to go ahead and create a new folder and call it views. In that folder, we're going to create a file called index.ejs. So this will be like your index.html and your main web page. We will do that like a normal. Yeah, like a normal web page. And I'm trying to keep this video short again. I know you all appreciate that because I talk way too much. But then body and HTML. All right, so we got our web page here. Let's just put something on it real quick. This is my page. I'm gonna go up here to save all. This is not quite finished yet, I think. Yeah, maybe. Let's see if this works. All right, in order to run this, you go back to your terminal and write node server.js. Hit enter, and it says, okay, the server is running at localhost 8000. Well, you want to take that, open your browser, and plug it in the top and hit enter, and it says it cannot get. Awesome. All right, it said it couldn't get because I didn't tell it to get. So one last thing you have to do on your server.js page, server get. You got to do the get. It's got to get the page. And that's simply, the page is going to send a request, a response, and we're going to send that to the function res render and render the EJS file. So it serves that page up, and then what you get is this is my page. So now if you go, we can close that. You go back to your EJS page. Every time you do something else, it's another sentence, and you save it. It's not as cool as 5 server. It doesn't automatically update nothing. Even if I go in here and hit, okay, even if I go in there and hit enter, refresh the page. I'm not sure if refreshing actually works. If I refresh, if refreshing does nothing, what you actually have to do is go up here and hit enter again, as if you're going to the page the first time. Oh, well, okay. Hold on, I may have lied. Make sure you save it. I'm going to refresh. Okay, refresh does work. Whatever. All right. So we have our server set up to serve us pages. It's serving us as a web server, right? It's serving us the index.ejs page. And that is for our development environment. So what we want to do now, we want to have our server reach out and get some information for us. I guess first things first, let's go ahead and create something in this page, right? We are going to create a div. I apologize for my pausing and everything. I'm just trying to how best to proceed and explain what's going on here. So we got a wrapper. We don't need all this. Stop doing that. We do need an end to that div. We got our wrapper, like we do. Then we want to create a field set. I think we talked about field sets before. In this field set, we're going to create a form, and forms usually have actions. This action is going to be a backspace and method post. This already knows what I'm going to do. All right. Create a form with the action with just a backspace. It's just saying the action's here. And we're going to post this information to the server when the form is submitted. All I've got here is an input type of text with the name of city. And in it is a placeholder of city name. I do say it's required because we need that for our API request. And then I create a button. And the button is of type submit. And it says get weather on it. Because that's what we want it to do. Did I end that form? Input and a button. All right, let's save it and refresh and see what all happens. Now we have this awesome little thing. It says enter city name and get weather. If I enter Kinston and I hit get weather, it says it cannot post. It doesn't know what it's doing yet. It doesn't know what it means, but we are going to change that. All right, so we need to get these variables. Ask for the response. All right. We're going to create a post in our server.js right here. Server.post. Post. And we are looking for the same thing there. These are getting to be a little bit irritating. I'm gonna paste this in here so you don't have to watch me type it all out. And I will, all right, first thing we need is a variable. Well, it did that for me. First thing we need is a variable. I'm going to call it city, and it's going to get that city variable from the index.ejs, or our main landing page file, whatever you want to call it. It's going to reach out to the variable named city. So we're not using IDs here, like get element by ID. This is actually using the name. And it's going to, and this, what this is saying here is that city is going to be equal to the item named city within the body of the requesting document, or the document sending the request. So that's where it gets the city from. And then we're going to take that, let me get rid of this. We're going to take this URL here. You see that I have the variable city concatenated. So if we take the URL, everything that's between these, oh, well, I guess let me explain it. This is just the HTTPS. We're going out to weathermap.org, and you go into some specific folders in there to request this information. Our query, or our API call, has to have a few things in it. Remember, city was required. We're specifying imperial units, and the app ID is the API key right here. But if I take everything between the quotes, copy it, and go to Now this page, I've already done it. You can see, just type that in the browser, take out the variable, and type in any city. I keep using Kinston. And that brings back a JSON response. You can see that it gives you a longitude and latitude, weather, clear skies, temperatures, sea level, a bunch of other stuff. So we're going to take this response and format it and put it out on the other page. So we're going to take that. Well, we need those two variables, right? And we're going to take that and make a request. The request is going to include that URL. So it's sending it out, and then it's supposed to get the function. We're going to add a function here. It's going to be comprised of an error, a response, and a body. If it errors, we're going to render the EJS file with no city, no response, and an error. It says it couldn't get there. So if we don't get any information back or there's some kind of error, it's going to say, hey, we couldn't get the weather there. Otherwise, we're going to take this response. We're creating a variable named response, and we're taking that JSON response and parsing the body of that response. I hope that makes sense. So we're going to parse the body of that response. That's not a variable. It's just, that's what you do. Or because I guess we specified it here. But if the main area of the response is undefined, we are going to render the EJS file. Again, no city, no response, which would be like temperature is what we're going to do, the response. And it's just going to say try again. So what is this? If response.main is undefined. And if we go back and look at the response, we can see that main is right here. So response.main gives you the temperature, the feels like, the pressure, humidity, sea level, and all other stuff. So response.main.temp will give you the temperature. Response.main.feelslike will give you what the feels like temperature. And then otherwise, if everything works right, we don't have any errors. We go to this else. It's going to log that response down here in my console. And then we're going to render the EJS with the city plus, so response.sys.country. What does that give us? Remember, this response is the whole thing, or the body, or however you want to call it. And then we look down here to sys. You can't see all that. Dot country. Is that what it was? Yeah. Response.sys.country. So that gives us the country, US or France or Europe or wherever in the world. And I'll show you how this works in just a second. I hope to pull it all together. We're also asking for the response.main.temp, which is the temperature, and any errors. If it's just null, it's null. We don't have to, we're not going to render any errors if there aren't any. So what does that all mean? Oh, one more thing that we actually have to do is in our server get, we have to render the kind of the same thing we're doing here. Yeah. Not sure if we need the error. Anyway, so we've got the server going out, we got the request going out and the information coming back, but we don't have any place yet to put it on our index.html. This is ugly, and I don't like the way they do it. I don't know if this is EJS or Node, but we have to create some variables here to take in that information. And really, so there's nothing on our page right now. If I bring up the Slim browser, there's no place on our page to post anything. So we're going to create a div, or we're going to put it in this field set, I guess. we have to create a place where that information will be. You can create a div, you can do fancy stuff. I'm just going to show you how to put in the variables. So signs and percentage marks all over the place on this. Let me just copy and paste this in here. So you don't have to watch me type it all, but I'll do my best to explain it. So if you recognize any of this stuff here, this is an if statement, right? If the response is not null or not empty, we are going to create an h2 variable that says the weather in, and then I've got the strong tag here to make it bold, and then the city variable. And again, so we have to declare that using the little carets or the greater than equal, greater than less than signs and percentage signs for the EJS to recognize that that is a variable. We will get rid of these. We're talking about that. I've got these put in an unordered list and a list item. Like I said, you can put it in a div, you can put it in a table, you can do however you want. It just has to, you just have to reference the variables in this manner. So my list item here has temperature, semicolon, and then the actual value from that response. This should be, this is this response right here. Response, the value of that is going to be the value. We got a key value pair. Every time you see a the colons, key and a value, the value is actually going to be equal to response.main.temp, which is the temperature. And then that's the end of the if. And then we have another if here. I guess this is just wrapping JavaScript in each line. If there's a null, it's going to create a paragraph. If there's an error, then it's going to create a paragraph and tell us what that error was. But we shouldn't have any of those. Let me save all of these and try and run this thing. I don't know. Oh, we got some errors. Response is not defined. Why does it do that? All right. When using Node, in your terminal here, when you start and stop, when you start Node, remember we did Node server .js, right? Tells you it's running on your local host. You then go to your page and you hit the button. Let's see, try again. I know why it's saying try again. Sorry. Your server, we don't need to render this, and you get, save that. All right, so this is a good example here. What I've just saved a file in your terminal. When Node is running, it's you don't have your cursor back, and sometimes you can, when you save the file, you need to stop the server and restart it. So if you hit Control C, you'll get your terminal back, and it shuts down the Node server. Then all you have to do, you can type in Node server.js again, or hit the up key, and it types it in for you. Then hit Enter. Your server's running again. You go back, you hit Enter, and you get problems again. If error, blah 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 blah. So maybe I did need to keep that error. In the server, because it does need, I suppose, an error, but it should be null. Error null. Okay. Save that again. And then go back down here. Control C. And the up arrow. And now I'm running again at localhost. Hit enter, and I get my page back, for crying out loud. This can be so frustrating. So it's frustrating sometimes when you forget to save it and you don't see your changes, being applied. It's frustrating. Now you have to remember to stop your server and restart it. That's why I like 5 servers so much. But it doesn't work in this fashion. So, I think everything's fine. Everything's saved. Restarted my server. Go to Kinston. Get the weather. Ta-da. All right, so if you remember what we did here, right here on line 32, I've got console log response. So it is logging the response right here. We can see this is the response, and then response dot main.temp gives us the temperature, 68.14 degrees. The sys country, so response.sys.country gives us US. So how did I use those to create the body here? Remember this, we're rendering our EJS key value pairs. The city is equal to the value of the city variable, which we declared up here. We're taking that same thing. We typed in Kinston and it passed Kinston, and now we're using it again here. I added a comma and then concatenated the response.sys.country to get the US over here on our page. To get the temperature down here, remember on our EJS, I created an unordered list with a list item in here. It says temperature with a semicolon and then includes the variable response. Our response, or I guess it should be temperature, but I keep running into errors where saying things are not defined if I don't have response in there, so I'm leaving it like that. But the response is equal to response.main.temp, which again is that temperature. So that's how it renders these out. And this is how it works. That's the project. And if your project can do this and go to Paris and get the weather, and we can go to Greenville and get the weather, and we can go to London and get the weather, and it works, that's an A. Now, what I would really like to see, I think, is some extra stuff. Let's see if I can go. And let me. I used index on this one. Localhost 8000. All right. So a little bit more, not a whole lot. I mean, it's still kind of boring. But what does mine do that the other one didn't? It does different stuff. So I want you to get a few more of those things. I need you to understand that JSON response and how to get your temperatures, right? I would like to see it do some things. Let's close that. Close that. Goodness. And this one will do things differently based on I only put a few of these in here. If it's sunny everywhere, it's not going to show. But I got like sky is clear in Greenville. Sky's clear in Paris. Sky's cloudy in London. So the background changed. There's lots of things you can do here. I just want you to make it look interesting. Do some extra stuff. Pull a few more details out. And see what you can figure out how to make it do. Or style it nicely. I don't care if you make it responsive like that. But pull a few more things out and style it nicely. So it's not so boring. And that's your project for the week. That's all I got for you. I know it was a lot. This video is probably forever long. But if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks.